Hello there! Welcome to Heartpanorama, a podcast that will take you on a journey through aspects of everyday life, such as personal development, life hacks, and other relatable topics. My name is Michelle, and I'm excited to share some of my thoughts with you in this podcast series. While I talk about today's topic, I'm mentioning certain brands, products, or services. Any form of product placement in this podcast solely serves discussion purposes and is not paid or sponsored in any way. Let's get started with today's episode, which, after my collaboration series, is actually the first episode of my relaunched and now regular podcast. I am planning to release episodes weekly on YouTube and on Castbox, maybe sometime later on other platforms as well, but I will keep you posted on Twitter because as of now, these are the two platforms I'm focusing on. In case I don't release episodes weekly, please bear with me. I'll try to keep up with that schedule. And now let's dive into today's topic. This episode will consist of a short introduction to this podcast series and also a Q&A because I haven't done this for a while. So for those of you who don't know me yet, let me introduce myself real quick. My name is Michelle. I'm 25 years old. I recently graduated from university with a master's degree in communication, majoring in media management. A trait that all my friends in real life know me for is probably that I've been a songwriter since I was 16. By the way, I am planning to share some new songs of mine soon on another channel, but I'll announce that separately on Twitter. In the online community, I am managing different fan accounts, mainly on Twitter, that are about Sailor Moon and Miraculous. These are the fandoms where most of Heartpanorama's development took place, actually. So, about the history of Heartpanorama. Heartpanorama has undergone a lot of changes in the past few years. 2015 was the year where I started this sort of brand with a blog actually, and initially this blog was about my songs and my favorite music, but quickly it got absorbed by fandom related posts, mainly Sailor Moon and Miraculous. In 2016 I wanted to talk about fandom related topics and be able to go more into depth without confusing people, and the problem with blog entries is that if you write a long text, then a lot of people don't really read the whole thing or don't even start reading it because of time issues, or they just don't feel like reading a long text. And that's when I decided to start a podcast because it was an easier way to express myself. So basically, when I recorded the first Heartpanorama podcast, I didn't think I would actually develop this format and make a regular thing out of it, but I thought it was just a one-time thing because I just wanted to express my thoughts. In 2017, I therefore moved contents that I would usually post as blog posts to this podcast, and back then I shared some reviews and a Q&A podcast, but other than that, I didn't really know what to post about. So there came the huge hiatus when I also was working on my master thesis, and there were so many things that came in between. And it was only at the end of 2018 that I decided that I don't want my podcast to just revolve around fandom related topics anymore. And that's also when I finally had the time to create a proper podcast schedule. And then there was the relaunch of my podcast in November when I kicked it off with a bunch of collaboration podcast episodes on my YouTube channel. Check them out if you haven't yet. We have some great topics up there. Now, today in 2019, I'm finally releasing the first regular episode, and you will be able to find podcast episodes every Sunday on Castbox and YouTube. As I said before, may be distributed on iTunes and Spotify later, but I'll keep you posted on that sometime later. So now to the actual part of this episode, which probably most of my friends are waiting for, is the Q&A I announced. I asked some people on Twitter to send in questions via the hashtag #heartpanorama to kick things off here. And let's just get started with the questions. So I got different kinds of questions. I got general questions, but also fandom-related questions. So I will proceed as follows. I will first answer the general questions and then get to the fandom questions, but I will not spoil anything, I promise. I took some notes for my answers and decided not to spoil anything in case you haven't seen the series or the episodes yet, whatever, you'll see. And yeah, let's get started. The first question is from my good friend Luna. She asked, if you were a flavor of ice cream, what would you be? My initial answer would have been apple or vanilla, but I haven't really thought about it because I just chose flavors that I really like. But actually then I thought, why not dig deeper into it and find out what flavor I am actually. So I went to BuzzFeed and looked for a test that tells you which ice cream flavor you are. And I actually found one, and the result was that I would be coffee. And when I saw the result, I thought, this is actually quite accurate because this is also one of the flavors I really like. And the explanation totally makes sense because they said, I'm just quoting very loosely, they said, I'm a go-getter, a hard worker, focused on what I want to accomplish in the future. I seek to inspire people around me. I'm approachable and kind rather than snotty and entitled. And I'm actually relating to this description a lot. So I think coffee makes a lot of sense. So yeah, that's the answer to to the first question. Then I got asked 2 questions by my birthday twin Josie. She asked, what kind of music do you listen to the most? I am actually listening to a little bit of everything, but mostly I listen to regular pop music. For example, Ariana Grande, Megan Nicole, Pixie Lott, and Olly Murs. These are just a few of my favorites. Her second question was, if you were an RPG character, which class would you be and how would your alignment be? And to be honest, I didn't initially know what to answer to that because I'm not really familiar with RPG. But once I played a German RPG game, which is called Das Schwarze Auge. The translation would be The Black Eye. I played that with my best friend's squad a few times, and once I was a dwarf and once a wizard, I think. I can't really remember anymore. But I don't know if that answers your question, but I would probably prefer being a wizard over a dwarf, to be honest. I can't say much about the alignment because I have no idea what this actually is, so I'm sorry if this doesn't answer your question at all. The next question is from my friend Laura. She asked, if you had to make a crazy purchase, what would you get? And my first thought was, if I were crazy rich, maybe I would buy a recording studio plus staff, because then I could record all my songs in no time and probably my podcasts too, and not worry about people being so noisy outside, which is actually why I'm struggling today. There was so much noise outside. And also this purchase would be very convenient because this would cover 2 of my hobbies. But now I just realized, what if I weren't crazy rich, but I just had to make a crazy purchase? I must admit it's hard to come up with an idea for that, because if it's affordable and I like it, then I would buy it. But if it's crazy, I don't know, I wouldn't buy anything that I wouldn't want. So the first thing I can think of that would be a bit crazy, in my opinion, is there is something that you can do here at the cinema in my town, where you buy a ticket to a movie without knowing what movie it is, and it's actually cheaper, I think. And yeah, if I had to make an affordable crazy purchase, I would probably buy my friends tickets for the cinema without knowing what movie it is for. My friend Ro asked me, what's been the best trip you've ever taken? I haven't been on a proper trip for ages. I think the last real trip I took, which wasn't a weekend trip to my relatives, was in 2012, I think. So I think it's time for a trip, actually. I'm rambling. I think the one that was my most fun trip was my school trip in 12th grade in 2010. We went to Italy back then for a week, and I got to see all the different places of the Toscana. So yeah, that was the most fun trip I can remember. These were the general questions. Now let's move on to the fandom-related questions. Feri asked me, how did you become a fan of Sailor Moon? If you want to know the long version of the story, check out my friend Luna TK's and my first podcast episode of Moolylicious. I talked about this in detail there. But the short version is, I watched the series as a kid, but I only just became a real fan at the age of 20 when there were reruns of the 90s anime on television on a boring Sunday afternoon. And also that was the time when the reboot of Sailor Moon, which was called Sailor Moon Crystal, came out. And that's when I actually started to actively engage with the online community as well. Next question is by Melly. She asked, what's the first thing you'd do if you found yourself in the Sailor Moon universe? Which is actually a quite interesting question. I would probably demand to be a Sailor Senshi too and ask for my own transformation pen because, hello, why not ask for that if you already have the opportunity to go into that universe? Alternatively, I would try to get Sailor Mars and Jadeite together because I ship those two and I want them to be together and I want them to be canon. And yeah, every Sailor Moon fan knows that they're actually just canon on this one drawing by Naoko Takeuchi and sort of in Sailor Moon Crystal as well, I guess. But somehow we never got to see the actual Sailor Senshi and the Shiteno together. So that would actually be a huge dream. And if I was in that universe, I would try my best to get those guys together. The next questions are related to the Miraculous fandom. My friend Ro asked a second question, and this time she asked, we're only a few episodes into Miraculous season 3, but which one has been your favorite so far? And I'm recording this after having seen the first 7 episodes of season 3. And as of now, obviously, my favorite episode has become Oblivio, which only just aired this week. So I'm still shook. And there are so many reasons why this is my favorite episode so far. And I don't know if any episode in the upcoming weeks or months can even top this episode. But I love the dynamic between our main characters and also between the Kwamis. There was so much character development in a way. Also, plot development, even if it's very subtle. But there is still new information for us viewers, so I see this as plot development. There was action, there was romance, there is also comedy in a few scenes. For me, it's just the perfect mix, and I think nothing can top this episode so soon. And I wish I could say more, but I promise not to spoil anything, so it's safe for everyone who hasn't seen this episode. If not, I just hyped you up a little bit more to watch it yourself. So we've gotten to the last question, and this is from Abby. She asked about my favorite memory from my time in the Miraculous World network. This is the network which my German fan account of Miraculous is part of. And she actually asked a tricky question because I love being part of this network family overall, and it's hard to pick a favorite memory. But I think the best times are when a new episode comes out and our whole group just collapses. Like this week when Oblivio came out and everyone's so hyped and freaking out and basically spamming my Twitter, and I have to catch up on everything they write because it's just so hilarious. And Another scenario is when we rant about some annoying aspects of the fandom together, because I think, like in any other fandom, there are a lot of people sometimes who complain about different aspects, and as fan account admins, it's hard to avoid them. And so we share our experience in our group chat and just rant about it sometimes to keep ourselves sane. So yeah, these are the two best memories, I think, of the network. That's a wrap, everyone. This was so much fun, and I wish I had more questions, but I just realized this already fills up a whole podcast episode. I didn't mention the people's usernames in here because all of them are actually friends and mutuals of mine. So if you want to know who the questions are from, just go to Twitter, search for the hashtag #heartpanorama, and there you can see who asked me the different questions. If you sent me a question but it wasn't answered here, this might be because I actually answered it in my former Q&A, which you can find on my YouTube channel. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I can't wait to share all the upcoming episodes with interesting topics with you. So tune in again next week. That was today's episode of Heart Panorama. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this podcast, please give it a like and leave a comment. Stay tuned for upcoming podcast episodes by subscribing to my channel and activating the notification bell. Check out the links in the description to find out where else you can find me and my podcast. Have a nice week and take care. Until next time, bye!